The time now is 11 o'clock, British summertime, midnight Central European time. Two newcomers in the charts this week. At number 18, the Chiffons with He's So Fine, and at 17, Del Shannon with Two Kinds of Teardrops. And in this rapidly changing period in British pop music, with that new group, the Beatles, leading the way, it's hard even to get halfway through a program without a record or at least a song by them. My tip for the top this week, the brand new recording by Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas of a song written by two members of the Beatles, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, Do You Want to Know a Secret? And I'll share a secret with you. I reckon that not only will that be a hit, but if George Martin ever decided to release the song from the Beatles album as a single, it could be a hit too. What's really surprising, of course, is that the Beatles just don't exist as far as America's concerned. Here they are, new group coming from nowhere, taking our charts by storm, and no one west of Land's End has ever heard of them. Those four lads from Liverpool, who this year are setting the music industry on its head. Last week, you may remember, Jerry and the Pacemakers were at the top with How Do You Do It? Well, this week, Jerry and the boys have been replaced by none other than the Beatles, with their latest George Martin product. So I thought we'd have a word with Jerry Marston to see how he feels about it. We've got Jerry on the phone right now. Good evening, Jerry, and welcome to 208.
Hiya, how are you?
Not too bad at all. Well, you've been number one, and the Beatles have squeezed you out. How do you feel about that?
I'm very annoyed at them. I am really annoyed. When I see them, I will slap their wrists.
Weren't the Escorts the group that won the prize? You know, when George presented the prizes at that big rock and roll contest at the Liverpool Philharmonic?
Yeah, the Liverpool Philharmonic, that was a contest featuring 86 groups, if I'm not mistaken, and 7 got through, were awarded prizes, and it got George, I think it was George, was in the theatre that night, and they were asked to award these prizes. George comes on stage, very well suntanned. He just got back from Canary Islands, and George presented the prizes amid a bit of clowning about on stage, and it was a good night, had by all.
That was way back last May, wasn't it?
Last May.
Yeah,
last May.
And that was about the time that their first album in this country became number one.
I think George was at a party, as I remember it, and a man from Decca there was saying, you know, do you know any groups? They were always asking us that, because we'd been successful, and they figured, well, you know, if you like them, maybe we can pick them up. So they're always asking our A&R people, heard of any good acts? And George said, yeah, there's this group we've seen down at the Station Hotel in Richmond. It's really good, called the Rolling Stones.
They were so excited, I think, of seeing them on stage. They just had to release the tension, you know, by screaming.
I was playing Premier at the time, sort of an English make, very heavy. But anyway, I loved anything American. And we went past this music store, instrument store in London, and they had this kit. I said, oh, great, look at this kit. I just loved the kit. It was that Black Pearl. I just loved that, and it was American. And when we went in and I bought it, because Brian was like, you know, a great manager and would buy amps and instruments to help us progress. And as I buy this kit, the guy goes to rip off the Ludwig sign. I said, no, you got to leave that on. It's American. And that's how it became famous. Now, most people are leaving we're all doing free adverts for whichever company we're playing.
And then Epstein said, well, wait a minute. You put Ludwig's name on the head. Where are the Beatles? And Ivor said, well, we'll put the Beatles on there also, but bigger. He's trying to make a drum sale. And with that, Ivor Arbiter pulled out a blank sheet of paper, circled it roughly, and drew the logo of the Beatles then and there with the exaggerated T. And that was accepted by Epstein and Ringo, and Ivor Arbiter had a sale.
Beatlemania, much as it sounds very glamorous and all that, and it's great to have fans admiring you, it's not much funny when they come at you like a horde of animals almost.
To Lennon and McCartney. So wait a minute, couldn't it be a McCartney-Lennon? No. So, you see, because they were always a little bit more outspoken than me. They said it sounds better. Well, all right, I suppose so.
I remember my first tour to England came after several offers from 1960 to 1963, and I agreed to come in 1963, and I didn't know who was touring with me, but my fan club president wrote me a letter and said, you will be touring with a group called the Beatles. And she said, that's terrific because they're number one in England, and everyone will get to see how good you are. I think she was a bit prejudiced, but at the same time, I did this tour with this group called the Beatles. They were terrific.
One of our first big tours was second on the bill to Roy Orbison, and it was pretty hard to keep up with that man. He really put on a show, you know. Well, they all did, but Orbison had that fantastic voice.
We used to be behind the curtains, and he coming on to close the show, and Roy would be right before us, and he was so big. I mean, he just stood there. Everybody knows who've seen him, and he doesn't move. Nothing, not a muscle of his face. He's even his mouth hardly moves.
Are you sure it was him singing?
It was him.
I remember standing backstage, and Paul and John and George and Ringo and I were in a sort of a circle thing talking. And they wondered how well they might do in America. And I was writing a column for a music paper. So I told them exactly what I wrote in the paper later that evening. I said, if you will go to America, keep your hair like it is, and your suits like they are, and the boots that you wear, and let it be known that you're English, and get on a show such as the Ed Sullivan Show, you will be as big or bigger in America as you are here.
Ever since then I thought, I'd have had Bad to Me, Do You Want to Know a Secret? I've had all these hit songs.
We knew we had to get them out after the show, but there was a real concern that they would be torn from limb to limb. So the only safe place in town was, in fact, the nearest police station. So after the show at the Odeon Cinema, the lads came for a couple of drinks in the police bar at my station on Shakespeare Street. In those days, all police stations had private bars. Those lads must have been totally exhausted after everything they had just gone through. They sat in the corner in comfy chairs while they relaxed, had a drink and a smoke. They just chatted amongst themselves, basically. They were as good as gold.
I used to love that Beatles radio show. Remember when it was before it was just going nuts on the air on a Friday night or something?
Pop Go the Beatles.
Oh, that was so hilarious. I used to run home from college to listen to that.
It was great to do those things, you know, because it was you'd never been exposed to anything like that, you know. So you go into a studio, it was the Beeb, there's all that institution thing. But then you'd get to play all your little favourite tracks.
And you got to destroy their rules a bit. You know, like you could hear voices in the background. Oh, hey, come on, Rick, you know, shut up. Boom, 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 you know, let's play this.
And then there's always an announcer, well, George, what do you think of this? It's marvellous. It's going to George. Well, I don't know, you know. Can I, like, you know.
It was great.
I remember arriving at the BBC, one of our occasions we were going to do Pop Go the Beatles, and going into the control room. I think I was maybe a little ahead of the time we were supposed to be there, and seeing the producers playing jazz stuff. And I thought, oh God, they're really jazz fans. They don't actually like what we do. They're doing it under sufferance.
Mr. Henneberry was a jazz fan, and he hated the Beatles because at that time Paul's girlfriend was Jane Asher, and she'd finished whatever her job. She'd come around and sit in the control room, and then she'd tell us later what he used to say, because he'd be behind the window and forget that she was there, and he'd be saying, "You bloody Beatles, they haven't got a clue, I hate this music," and all that kind of stuff. Hello, Terry. Nice to know you're loved, isn't it?
That was the feeling we got, definitely, you know. And we just had to trust that the engineers knew what they were doing. And I think when you listen back to it, they were pretty good, actually. They didn't do badly. We found engineers on a certain session. There'd be one that we'd think, oh, my God, this guy's got it. You know, he's a bit like our EMI engineers. And we used to ask for those engineers. Then there'd be the talk, you know, with the very plummy BBC announcer, who, again, was not from our world at all. Couldn't imagine what world he was from, because we'd be sort of, you know, hello, how you doing? All right. Well, we've got a record here from Eileen, and she's obviously a big, big fan of yours. You go, oh, great, thank you. You know, it's like, God, what are we doing? And going over it now, you realise we were all doing what we had to. You had the actors doing the announcements, and they really would have rather been doing Hamlet. We were doing what we had to then. And then you've got Terry Hennebury and behind the control glass. He really would rather be down a jazz club. But we were all doing what we had to. And it came together.
I heard they were coming to Manchester Odeon, and I'd heard the Odeon Cinema, and we didn't cover, we theatre critics so-called, didn't cover one-night stands of pop stars because there was no continuity. But anyway, I bought tickets at £1 each, I think, and Jerry and the Pacemakers had been on before, and Roy Orbison preceded the Beatles. I saw them in '63, fell for them, decided this was a wonderful thing, that they shone a light on the world.
Yes.
And I would like to get in the light and be illuminated by it.
Yes.